My cousin Nate has been in the Coast Guard for more than a decade. He's not the kind of guy who makes things up. He's straightforward, grounded, practical, the sort of person who likes boats, routine, and order. He's not into horror movies, doesn't chase ghost stories, and doesn't believe in the supernatural. That's exactly why the story he told me shook me so much. He told me about it in the summer of 2022, and I made him repeat it more than once because of how disturbing it was. Every time, the details stayed the same. He wasn't embellishing, he wasn't exaggerating, just a steady recounting of something he lived through. It happened back in 2017 when he was assigned to do lighthouse maintenance duty on a rocky island off the coast of Maine. The place was called Matanus Rock. It wasn't much more than a jagged cluster of stones sticking out of the Atlantic. You could only reach it by helicopter or small boat. There were no permanent residents, no power grid, and almost no cell service. Just one old lighthouse and a squat auxiliary shed used to store fuel, tools, and emergency supplies. The lighthouse itself was automated. Normally it required very little human attention, maybe one visit every year or two. But there had been electrical failures the year before, strange outages no one could fully explain. So for this trip, the Coast Guard decided not to send a single technician. Instead, they sent two men, Nate and another guard named Russell. At first it was uneventful, windy days, cold, salt spray, and boring work. They did the same routine every day. Check the beacon mechanics, scrape salt corrosion off the interior walls, refill the diesel generator, and run test cycles on the backup batteries. Nights were quiet. They ate simple meals, read, and played cards to pass the time. It was isolation, but nothing unexpected. That changed on the fourth night. The beacon fails. Nate woke up at about 2 in the morning with a strange feeling. He said it wasn't pain or sickness, just a heaviness in the air, like the sensation right before a thunderstorm. Only when he looked outside, the sky was perfectly clear. He noticed immediately that something was wrong. Through the narrow window he should have seen the lighthouse beacon sweeping across the sea every few seconds. But there was nothing, just darkness. Panicked, he woke Russell, and together they climbed the narrow spiral staircase to the top of the tower. The machinery that rotated the light was still moving. The gears clanked, the motor hummed, but the light itself wasn't turning. Something had jammed the mechanism. Wedged deep inside was a soaked, slimy mass of fabric. It looked like a heavy coat or blanket, covered in moss and smelling of rotting seaweed. There was no way it had blown in. The doors had been locked, the windows sealed. Still, they pulled it out, tossed it into the wind, and went back to bed unsettled, but trying to rationalize. Maybe it had been misplaced equipment, maybe a freak accident. But the next night, at almost the exact same time, it happened again. This time the object wasn't a blanket, it was smaller, old-fashioned. A red scarf, frayed at the edges, soaked through with seawater. Tiny barnacles clung to its threads, as if it had been resting on the ocean floor for years. That was the moment Nate knew something wasn't right. Shadows on the rocks after that. They started barricading themselves in. Every night they blocked the stairwell with heavy crates and double-checked every lock. But the sense of dread grew. Russell, who had seemed steady at first, began to unravel. He muttered to himself at night. Nate woke once to hear him whispering softly to the dark corner of the room. When confronted, Russell denied saying anything, his face pale and confused. Another night, Nate woke to find him sitting at the window, staring down at the black rocks below. Russell claimed he had seen someone standing there the night before, just on the edge of the beacon's light. A human shape, watching, and then gone when the beam rotated back. From that point on, Russell barely slept. He'd sit for hours, rigid, muttering about noises in the walls, or about footsteps on the stairs. On the 9th night, both men heard it clearly, footsteps coming down from the beacon room above. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Nate froze. Russell was already standing at the base of the staircase, staring upward. Nate asked if he had gone up there. He said no. Nate hadn't moved either. Still, the sound continued. Step, 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 until it stopped. The silence that followed was even worse than the noise. That night, they barricaded their bedroom door with furniture and slept with knives under their pillows. By the 11th night, things reached their breaking point. Once again, the beacon failed. But when they climbed to the top, the beacon room door wasn't just ajar. It had been thrown wide open, like someone had kicked it in. Inside, the beacon was dark, not jammed this time, but tampered with. The massive bulb had been unscrewed, removed with deliberate effort, and placed upright in the center of the room like some sort of offering. Nate stared at it, heart hammering. Russell muttered over and over, "Someone did this. Someone did this. Then Nate felt it, a cold brush against his back. He spun around, but the room was empty. Russell went pale, pointing at the wall, whispering that he saw a hand sliding out from between the stones. They bolted, crashing down the spiral stairs, locking themselves in the bedroom. Russell rocked in the corner, whispering. Nate sat awake until dawn, gripping his knife. At first light, Nate grabbed the emergency sat phone and called for an immediate pickup. He reported a mechanical failure, the safest excuse he could give without sounding insane. The final distress call. The boat arrived that afternoon, but when the crew stepped onto the island, one of the deckhands asked a question that made Nate's blood run cold. "Hey, what was that distress call you made at 2:12 this morning?" Nate froze. He hadn't touched the phone until daylight. The deckhand explained. The base had received a garbled transmission from their sat phone hours earlier. The voice on the other end, distorted with static, said something about someone being here with us before cutting out. Nate swore he never made that call. Russell stayed silent the entire ride back. He quit the Coast Guard within a few months and never told anyone what had happened out there. Nate still does maintenance duty from time to time, but he swore to me with that flat, grounded seriousness he always has, that he will never, ever set foot on Martinez Rock again. Closing thoughts: was it a prank? Sabotage, madness brought on by isolation, or something far stranger hiding in the walls of that remote lighthouse? All I know is this: my cousin Nate doesn't lie, and every time he tells me the story, his voice hardens when he describes the footsteps, the cold brush against his back, and that final call he never made. Martinez Rock is still out there, its lighthouse standing guard over the black Atlantic waves. But if you ask Nate, he'll tell you the same thing he told me. Some places aren't meant for people to stay overnight. Some places don't want you there.